Mr. Malice.
Yeah.
Did you see what Marjorie Taylor Greene recently said about vaccine passports?
The mark of the beast.
The mark of the beast.
I predicted that.
You predicted what?
That Christian fundamentalists are going to start invoking the mark of the beast, not incorrectly, about these vaccine passports.
Not incorrectly.
Yes.
This is the craziest thing, because I didn't know this until someone super chatted us. That the mark of the beast was literally saying you couldn't buy or sell without it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. When I grew up.
You didn't read Revelation?
No.
Ooh,
and
I
went
Whore
to
of
Catholic
Babylon?
school. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Kindergarten until end of 5th grade. I was in Catholic school.
7 heads and 10 horns?
Yeah. And it rose from the lake or whatever or something. Yeah. I read it recently. And I think it was several months ago, someone mentioned on the show that the prophecies are starting to come true.
They're always starting
I know.
Yeah.
And so I actually did it. I did a segment on it for my main channel.
People have been more immoral now than they've ever been.
Yeah. People are saying that like the prophecy of the lady with this star.
The Whore of Babylon, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, it's Venus and the moon and whatever. And it's like, you're looking for patterns. Like you were just saying a moment ago. You look for patterns. Humans are really good at this. What's that thing that's called where you like look at it? You can see
faces. Yeah, I forgot what that's called.
Pareidolia or something like that.
So.
You can see a face and everything. And so people post these photos on the internet. So I do think it's really interesting, though, that the vaccine passport, you'll need it to buy and trade. And now you've got, obviously, certain individuals saying, could this be the mark of the beast? Could it be?
No. It's not. It's a bad idea regardless of the mark of the beast. And the problem is I'm a fan of hers because I like anyone who's a loon who says things that are just, it's much more effective to get your position across in politics if you come across as unreasonable than if you're trying to sit down and have a discussion.
Really? Why do you say? Why?
Because there's no talking to her, right? So she's not going to sit down with AOC and they're not going to co-sponsor legislation, right?
That's never going to happen.
That's never going to happen. But
AOC wouldn't do it either.
But that's of use to the Republican Party when they're coming off as intransigent, because then the Democrats, this happened twice. It happened during the Gingrich Congress in 94, 95. This happened during the debt ceiling crisis under Obama when the Republicans we're not raising the debt crisis and we might have to default. Those are the only 2 times they got budgetary concessions from the Democrats. So it's a very useful thing to come off as or actually be alone. Yeah.
That's what a lot of people were saying about Donald Trump.
Right.
When it came to foreign policy, people were like, you can't negotiate with this guy because he's out of it. And so that put pressure on these other world leaders where it's like, what do you do when you have to negotiate for the best of your country and you're with Donald Trump who's going to go, excuse me, no, I don't know what that is. We're not, no. And you're like, what do I say? He just takes. It's one of the reasons people really like the guy. But I suppose it's a good point. Now, to be fair, I think AOC isn't going to be, coming to the table for the Democrats either. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, like you said, comes off like a loon. AOC is not going is effectively doing the same thing for Democrats. So in essence,
she's not.
You don't think so?
I don't think it's the same thing. I don't think AOC is saying. Well, no, you're right. You know what? Because she is saying the Republicans are changing the weather and through climate change. So I just take it back. Yeah. Okay. I'm right. I was wrong.
Look, she said under Donald Trump, these are concentration camps.
Yeah.
So we can see. It's funny how they demonize Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm like, yo, you guys had AOC first. So you don't get to come out and complain about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, I can certainly point out Marjorie Taylor Greene's posts on Facebook, and she apologized for these things. She did. She walked it all back.
Let's talk about that. Okay. If you say that the Rothschilds are building lasers to change the weather, I get how you're sorry you said it.
Yeah.
But I don't get is walk me through how you got there and why you no longer are going there. That's what I want to know. I don't need the apology.
So are you saying that it's quite possible that she's just saying that and she really still believes in the space lasers changing the weather?
If you believe that space lasers changed the weather, as is your prerogative, what changed your mind? Al Roker?
No, hold on a second. There was several studies done where they used infrared lasers to cloud seeding for cloud seeding.
Okay.
That actually happened.
Sure.
I guess the issue is when you claim the Rothschilds were doing it, instead of like, it was like a University of Berlin or something, was like, hey, we just realized this thing happens when you point lasers at the sky.
Tinfoil pool.
Yeah.
No, I just think it's like, what you need to understand about the insidiousness of these conspiracy theories is how they come from a little seed of truth.
Oh, of course.
And
yes.
then someone pours Gatorade on them because that's what plants crave. And then they end up with some wacky idea. They can't figure out why things aren't working properly.
And also in their defense, we've all played telephone, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't tell you the number of times when someone reads an article and then they'll just repeat it, and it's like that's not what the article said at all. I've had people accuse me, because I wrote a book called The New Right, of portraying myself as having invented it. I'm like, what are you perceiving me having said that you're getting to this conclusion?
Yeah.
Other than the Rothschilds put lasers in your brain.
But look, I think AOC holds. I think it's fair to point out, thinking about space lasers from the Rothschilds for weather control is like very much out there for sure.
It's out in space.
Here's the problem.
It's silver
The
nitrate.
Democrats believe often many equally as insane things.
Sure.
Chris Hayes has on a guy on his show on MSNBC. Is it possible that Donald Trump has been a Russian asset since the late 80s? And they don't even stop to think that would imply that Trump was still working for the Soviet Union, which doesn't exist. So who is the asset for? You know about that, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's as crazy as space lasers, to be honest.
It's not. What I'm saying is, well, I mean, that's fairly crazy. We'll have a crazy off and calculate and quantify what's.
No, it's come on. Wait, what's more crazy? That one person has been corrupted, or that they're changing the weather for secret purposes? I don't think those are comparable in terms of lunacy. And also, Putin was a KGB agent, so there was a lot of continuity between the Soviet Union and now.
Absolutely,
no one's denying that.
We have satellites. We have satellites with lasers. We can use infrared lasers for cloud seeding. We use silver. Was it silver iodide for cloud seeding?
Maybe, yeah. I thought it was silver nitrate. It might be
silver
iodide.
nitrate. I could be wrong. Silver nitrate.
There's a silver they use.
The point is,
Making it
I'm
rain in
saying
Dubai.
if you had to play roulette, and the choices are Donald Trump has been a Russian agent, and the Rothschilds are firing lasers to change the climate, you're saying it's a coin toss?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying that they're both really crazy, and
Right,
I understand why you think one is crazier than the other, because
Okay.
it certainly is.
Okay, that's all
But
I'm
I'm
saying.
also pointing out what they do is they take morsels of truth to create this like
Of course.
amalgam.
It's a lot easier to manipulate with some basis in truth than just something pure fabrication.
1619 Project is fabricated
yes.
garbage, and the left believes this. AOC believes this stuff.
It's a creation myth.
Right. She puts this stuff in policy. So again, I get it.
I'm sorry to interrupt you because I'm going to be pedantic. We don't know that she believes it. It could just certainly
Okay.
be of use to her.
I agree. No, I think you're
That's
right.
insidious.
I just mean
Possible.
that she uses it.
Yeah.
So this is the point I was going to bring up before. Under Trump, she's like, these are concentration camps. Under Biden, she literally said there's no border crisis, and it's different now because Biden is trying to solve the problem. It's worse than it was under Trump. It's not the most amount of migrants, but Reuters even said we are looking at a 20-year spike in these unaccompanied minors and illegal immigrants. We got new video from Project Veritas. Children in the dirt under a bridge near McAllen. It is bad.
What
Really bad.
they don't want to talk about, because no one knows how to wrap their heads around this. I saw there's some articles that mention this, but it's not being made into a bigger deal than I think it really should be. People talk about rape culture. There's a lot of sexual assaults in these. When you have lots of people who are not citizens, who have no access to the legal system, who you don't know who the heck they are, they're locked in close confinement with other people. Like in a prison, you're going to have large numbers of assaults. And that
Absolutely.
to me is what I find extremely disturbing. And if you actually were concerned about these people who are being held in these locations, that should be your priority number one. And it's not. And that to me is very, very sick.
Let me ask you something. Do you believe Marjorie Taylor Greene genuinely believed those things she was saying?
Yes.
Do you think AOC genuinely believes the things she's saying?
No.
Which would you prefer in government?
I would prefer, I can't say what I prefer regarding government because we get banned.
Okay, that's fair.
All right, just like we won't go to the moon with it, but if you're like looking at two people and you're like, you can have the person who's lying or the person who's crazy, what do you do?
I would rather have the person who's lying, because the person who's lying is still aware of reality and acting in accordance with it. Whereas the person who's crazy, it is a bell curve. And if you go 4 standard deviations, you might have things like nuclear war or really crazy.
So
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
agree because
Yeah.
the point I wanted to get to is with a liar like AOC, if she was given unlimited resources, she would implement some really wacky, crazy system where she tries to pander to her base.
Sure.
But at least it would be like healthcare that people just kind of are upset with. Or, generally bad things that still exist in reality. If you took someone who was absolutely crazy, and I'm not trying to imply Marjorie Taylor Greene would do this, but if you had somebody who believed that there was Nazis on the far side of the moon, with unlimited resources, they would get us building rockets to the moon to go fight people who aren't there. And that would just...
I might rather have rockets to the moon than like socialized healthcare, because less people are dying.
We'll see.
So now you made
then
the
hold
argument
on.
for the other case.
Exactly.
Huh.
The point I'm making is that you could have a crazy person just build crazy things. I don't know. Maybe they nuke the moon. AOC would
Gotta
just
nuke someone.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? Got something sitting around? You can't. They're gonna expire at some point. So maybe it's not so easy, Because the liar is going to make a broken system, and they do. The politicians are just like, how can we make everyone happy? I don't know, give them universal health care that they got to pay for so they get the individual mandate.
No, here's the easy one, that the Republicans for fiscal responsibility, they never vote for a smaller budget. That's a very blatant, explicit line.
Right. You get liars or you get crazy people, and sometimes you get both. I think we have both. I don't know, I guess your solution is what? Just like anarchy?
Yeah. It's not empowering crazy people and liars.
Have you?
With the power of police.
I was thinking we could get rid of representatives and just use smart contracts that we vote for as a collective. So
Why do we have to vote on anything?
So that we can agree without having to
'Cause
talk to each
sometimes-
other.
Because sometimes rivers start on fire.
Sure, but rivers start on fire because the property right of that river isn't being protected.
The people owned the river.
But that's not a thing. People can't. Who are the people? It's like that's
People who live there?
That's the tragedy of the commons. Is that when no one owns it, then no one feels responsibility for it, and then everyone just takes whatever resources they can, and then it becomes destroyed.
There's a logical hole here. Whenever I have these conversations with like libertarians and objectivists about owning water, it's like, so you're familiar with the Cuyahoga River?
You're owning water right there.
Right, I'm talking about like a river.
Apparently, the Cuyahoga River caught on
That-
fire again last year.
What, really?
Yeah, someone just told me about it in Cuyahoga Falls.
Let's talk about pollution, because there's no system where this isn't a complicated issue. So let's be reasonable here. Let's compare China to the U.S. The Chinese river dolphin, the goddess of the river, which has been a symbol of China for centuries, has now gone extinct.
Wow.
The Chinese paddlefish, which I think is the second or largest freshwater fish, has now gone extinct. The pollution, when you have a heavy centralized economy, which leads to poverty, means that government now is trying to pull resources from whatever it can, because otherwise the people are starving. So when you have a bougie society, a whole food society, those are the ones who care and have the ability and wealth to preserve the environment, to preserve things like rivers. But I agree with you. No environmentalist or anyone on earth is going to have an easy solution when you're talking about water, which moves, and you're
upstream,
and
downstream.
weather and things like that. Yeah.
Have you ever seen? Did I ask you about this before?
Other than having a culture where this is revered and something that people care about.
So I'm very much in favor of environmental regulations. I don't know if the solutions to the world are always going to be easy or as clear cut, but have you ever seen this video? It's by, I think it's a YouTube channel called Gray Still Plays, I think it's called, where it's a game. I think it's called City State.
Okay.
And he decided to just make it pure anarchy. And he thought it was going to be a bunch of wealthy oligarchs and a bunch of poor people and drugs and gangs. And this video, he's a really funny YouTuber. It's a really, really great video because he's shocked by what happens. And so you watch him play the game, and you watch the game played by other people, and they're like, I think we need environmental regulations. Okay, let's make sure we have housing for the poor. And you get a mix of poverty and pollution, and you're fighting to keep things going. So he decides he's going to have no regulations, no taxes, and let people do whatever he want. And as the game progresses, there's no poverty anymore. Everyone's living in luxury, and he's going, what's happening? It literally says like capitalist oligarchy, and there's no poor people. Everyone's homes are being built up. There's ski resorts everywhere. He's like, why are there so many ski resorts?
Yeah, but the poor people have been made into cold cuts.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, just like
Now they have value.
the funny thing is, I guess the response you get from the left is that the game was clearly made by a capitalist. But in this simulator,
All games are made by capitalists. It's a game. It's not a gulag.
Exactly. I just think
Leisure is a function of capitalism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Explain. Come on.
What do you need to explain? Like,
Communists don't play baseball.
no. First of all, baseball. No, baseball's a Western contrivance. But the point is, when you have a
Contrivance.
it is.
True,
They
yeah.
think it's a waste of time because it's not working for the culture. And it's, I forget why they specifically hated baseball, but that maybe because it was too American. But yeah, when you have these states where you're supposed to be working for your fellow man, any spare time, that means that's time you're taking away from poor people and hungry people. You need to be working.
Yeah, they particularly
in-
attributed leisure to specialization,
Yeah.
which came from capitalism.
You know that in North Korea, there are people whose job is to be a skateboarder.
I've never heard of North Korea.
Never heard of it.
No.
So there's this place. It's it's part of a peninsula. All
You
right?
mean like an island?
A place?
It's not an island. It's a peninsula.
Okay.
All right. And the northern part is, basically it's communist. But in this place, there are people who are told they have to skate every day by the government.
Are they competitive athletes?
Competitive. Yeah. And so they compete. I guess it's the idea. I don't know that they have the ability, or I'm not entirely sure. I've just seen the photos and like I've read it in skateboarding magazines about the communists who are like mandated to be skateboarders.
Well, let me break this down a little bit because, as you guys know, I wrote a book on North Korea, dear reader. So it's not. I mean, this is something that's taken a little bit out of context. Athletes in a country that's as poor as North Korea, as small as North Korea, is a great way to have reverence on the world stage because they're saying, look, we're tiny North Korea. We're the size of, well, they wouldn't use this example, the size of Pennsylvania, and we're taking on Russia. We're taking on the wicked U.S. imperialists and the Jap. I can't even finish the sentence because it's a slur. So this is a great, and also, if you're coming from nothing, now it's your chance to be a hero of the entire nation. So they are this is a big thing during the Olympics with the Cold War. This is a very common mechanism for these states. Cuba. I talk to people who know people in the UFC who think they engaged in these kind of super soldier experiments on kids to make these athletes who are later growing up to be UFC fighters because this is their and the East German women's swim team were all on a certain type of steroid. And they asked the coach, they go, why do they all have such deep voices? And the coach said, they came here to swim, not to sing. This was the quote.
Wow.
So this is very common in these centralized countries where you are basically becoming a hero because it's not expensive to become a great skateboarder.
Well, don't you think that there's
I'm surprised that skateboarding is a thing there, to be honest, because that's such a capitalist bougie thing.
it's entering the Olympics.
Okay,
It was
I didn't
announced,
realize skateboarding was an Olympic event.
Well, it's I think its first Olympic event is going to be coming up in China.
Okay,
I
that's
think.
why. Okay,
And over the
China.
past decade, it's been a huge point of contention for skateboarders because, I mean, skateboarders become for a long time very corporate, mainstream, cookie cutter, and that's kind of a bummer. Like a lot of the best for a while now, a lot of the best skateboarders kind of just like, where's the fun? Where's the wild? Where's the anarchy? Where's the punk rock?
Sure.
It's still there for sure.
Well, look at Green Day. Same thing with punk rock itself. It becomes Gap punk. Sorry,
Right.
Billy Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely.
Dookie was good. In
But
my
I mean,
opinion.
we're-
I was
but
young when I
listen,
heard
listen.
that.
You love Dookie, Ian.
I love
You
Dookie.
listen to
Ian always loves Dookie.
Dude, I love what you said, Michael, about centralized government and because the United States is kind of decentralized. Like states
In many
rule.
ways, yeah.
The cops in a state can be like, get out of here to the feds if they come and try and bust up their state laws, and that's very exciting to me. That we
Yeah. I mean, you have, I think Ohio basically said to the ATF, like, we're not going to enforce federal gun laws. I think West Virginia just passed something similar where they're all basically saying, even though the ATF says that they'll enforce these laws, you can't do anything about it. I went to the ATF's website reading about bump stocks because of this new court ruling that said a bump stock is not a machine gun. And they still say, no, you cannot have it. So I do find it interesting. When California legalized medicinal marijuana, the DEA still came in and raided these shops. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting that you can be in your state and know that you're safe from your state, basically. The feds still come in.
Yeah, I was there for that in L.A., and that was a big fear a lot of times that the feds would come and raid one of those shops.
Yep. And they did. I watched videos of it.
And there were times that the local cops would be like, get out of here, but I mean, it was the feds.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a weird
I mean,
a
what
weird
are
challenge.
your thoughts? Because, I mean, you're coming from a position of anarchy. When you have a state say it's legal to do these things and the feds say we're going to come in and bust them up anyway.
I think that's wonderful. I mean, I think anytime you have this kind of power versus power, it just shows you that law is a myth. And all law means is what people don't appreciate is law only works if you have the will to enforce it. So a lot of times things become legal not because some politicians went in and changed the law, but because there was no political will to enforce it. Same thing with the lockdowns. At a certain point, Cuomo said this. I got paid to read his book, and he says in the book, he says, I knew unless I got compliance from the voluntary compliance from the vast majority of the population, there was no way I could put this in place. So he's like, it was important for me to murder the elderly, but also to explain to the population why we're putting these things into place so that they would feel comfortable doing this. So this is the big misconception is that versus 1984 versus Brave New World, so much of authoritarianism is not a function of a gun to your head like they have in North Korea. It's a function of the televangelists like John Oliver and Rachel Maddow on your TV every night.
Prothero.
Yeah, of course. Telling you this is good. People who don't do this are bad and evil or stupid. And good people behave in this certain way. And then you don't have to have the cost of enforcing compliance.
Cultural.
But then,
Yes.
don't you think at a certain point, we're talking about leisure, you end up with too much ignorance, weakness, laziness, and people who
this is, I think, the strongest criticism of capitalism, and I've come up with it, and I don't have a good answer. this comes from the paleo kind of diet and mindset. If you get to a point where Maslow's hierarchy of needs has been taken care of, meaning you don't have to worry about where the next meal is going to come from, you don't have to worry about the roof over your head, you don't have to worry about your health really, your brain is still wired to think in terms of resource scarcity. Our brains are still in terms of get more, get more, get more. And if you don't actually have problems in an evolutionary sense where no predator is going to eat you, you have plenty of food, you have shelter, your brain is going, and this is my hypothesis, is going to find problems to validate its emotion in the same way that depression and anxiety, people don't realize this, the emotion comes first, the depression and the anxiety, then your brain tells you, oh, you're depressed because you don't have a job. There's plenty of people who don't have a job who aren't depressed. It's just your mind tells you exactly what it needs to do to validate this emotion to perpetuate itself.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.